Cary's Government Access Channel.
Ordered the November 20th meeting of the Cary Town Council, and at this time I'll recognize Councilmember Bush for our ceremonial opening. Ms. Bush.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to thank you and Council and all of town staff yesterday for the great dedication that occurred at the Western Wake Regional Wastewater Management Facility and the great celebration of World Toilet Day that we had. But I also wanted to share with the citizens that today is Name Your PC Day in line with World Toilet Day. I thought, it's something that seemed way up my alley. So World Name Your PC Day. And with that, if you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now at item 1.3, which is the adoption of our agenda. We have suggested changes to our agenda to the following items. At the request of the owner, table item 4.12, owner-initiated annexation petition, and 14A13, Triangle Brick Company, Louise Clayton. At the request of the applicant, table items 4.15, 4.16, which is the rezoning, 14 REZ 24, Indian Wells Road properties, and accompanying comprehensive plan consistency statement. At the request of the applicant, table items 6.5, 6.6, Phillips property, rezoning. I have to go down and get the rezoning number.
6.5.
It is 14 REZ 12 and accompanying comprehensive plan consistency statement. Would any other council member like to pull anything else from our consent agenda for discussion?
Is there anything left?
Not much. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to item 2.1, which is the recognition of our 2014 Hometown Spirit Award recipient. And at this time, I would like to invite our 2013 award recipient, Jerry Miller, to join me at the podium.
I wasn't the winner of 2013, but 2014.
Okay.
Oh, this is
Come around this way. You won last year. That was 2013. 2014 this year.
For the record, he enjoyed it for all of 2014.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes.
Served most of 2014.
It was a great, great honor to be chosen to be the Hometown Spirit Award winner last year, and I want to thank the whole town of Cary. Thank you very much.
Before this meeting, we had a reception to honor all of our nominees for this year's Hometown Spirit Award winner. And it struck me at the reception that this is a perfect time of year leading into the Thanksgiving holiday for us to honor and thank those members of our community like Jerry Miller who unselfishly serve others throughout the year. And I'm going to call out the names of our nominees, and if they would, please stand and remain standing just for a moment. Steve Linton is a nominee. Barbara McGee. And Mr. David Martin. Now, there's a lot of information about these nominees on our website, and I do hope everyone takes the time to read all the things they do for the town of Cary. They are examples of our community servants who work every day to help Cary maintain its small town spirit and charm. Join me in thanking them one more time. Thank you. Okay. You may be seated. All right, Mr. Miller, I want to thank you once again for your contribution.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure.
And we have a sealed envelope, and a lot of people think I know what's in this envelope, and I have no idea who won. So I'm dying to know who's won. Our 2013 winner is going to announce our 2014 winner.
Okay. A sealed envelope.
Nothing up my sleeve.
Our 2014
Speaking to the mic. Speaking to the mic.
2014 winner is David J. Martin.
Thank you. And we have a little glass for you there, Mr. Martin. Would you like to say a few words?
I read in the paper where I said that the only place you can go better than Cary is heaven. And thank you for leading us in the right direction. You folks have done a wonderful job, and I'm just your servant. If I can help you in any way, call on me. And I think I want to say this. I thank the Coopers and the Sturdivants and the McLawhorns for their support and recommending me for this honor that probably I'm not worthy, because I've read about these other people. They are wonderful people. But it's a great, great night to be in the presence of such wonderful people. Thank you for all you do, and may God bless you every moment of your life.
And to all of our nominees, thank you, and God bless you for all you do for our community. You make what Cary is all about, and it's the people of Cary. Thank you.
My parents have 18 grandkids. We have 2 great-grandchildren.
Really? Great.
We're now at item 2.2 of our agenda. It's the recognition for North Carolina Smart Fleet Leadership Designation. Ms. Barrett of our staff will present this item. Ms. Barrett?
Council, it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Calland, who's the Executive Director of the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. Not only is Steve a leader in our community, but he's also a Cary resident.
Welcome, Steve.
Welcome. Okay, on this microphone?
Yes.
I see you guys didn't get my note about leaving a milk crate for me to stand on back here. You can see me over the
I
top
have it
here.
over here for me.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so my name is Steve Calland. I am the Executive Director of the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. You may know us more commonly as the North Carolina Solar Center. We changed our name about 6 months ago, and so we're just trying to get everybody used to our new name, including myself. I still call us the wrong name on occasion. The Solar Center, or excuse me, I just did it. The Clean Tech Center is part of the College of Engineering at NC State University. And one of the programs that we administer under our expertise is something called the North Carolina Mobile Care Program. Mobile Care is part of a large grant and recognition program that is funded by the State Department of Transportation with federal dollars that are passed through to us at the university. And one of the things that we do as a part of that program is administer North Carolina Smart Fleet. Smart Fleet is a recognition program that recognizes leadership in the promotion of clean transportation technologies. And there's a wide array of different types of transportation technologies that fit under that umbrella. The town of Cary is being recognized as the Smart Fleet leader for its reduction in gasoline and diesel use since 2011. Through the use of biodiesel, an electric vehicle, idle reduction activities, and a fleet right-sizing policy, the town of Cary has offset a little bit more than 3,600 metric tons of carbon dioxide since 2011 and reduced your petroleum fuel use despite population growth and increased service area. Additionally, the town of Cary has distinguished itself by supporting the clean transportation work of other fleets in the region through your involvement with the local Department of Energy Clean Cities Coalition, the Triangle Clean Cities Group, and by sharing your experiences through public outreach activities. So I want to particularly recognize the leadership of Scott Hecht, the Director of Public Works, Juan Vega, the Fleet Manager here, and of course Emily Barrett, the Sustainability Manager, who we work with on a number of different fronts at our center. So with that, I'd like to present the award.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your continued leadership and support, as always, as we work to make our fleet more efficient and sustainable. Certainly, I want to acknowledge our sustainable fleet team. Behind me, you know Emily Barrett, our Sustainability Manager. Cheryl Perry is our Purchasing Manager, who keeps me and everyone else in this town out of trouble, and we owe her so deeply. Juan Vega, our Fleet Manager, is not available this evening to be here, and Matt Weatherall is a business analyst in the manager's office, who is also not available tonight, but they are two integral parts of this team. Just real quick, they work, something to share so hard and collaborate so well to always look at air quality issues and sustainable issues, but not just looking at them, but they think through them and use their head and make good, informed, good business decisions. So they're not just out there looking for things, but they're making sure it makes sense for us as they weigh those options. So with that, thanks to the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Thanks again to the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center for being a reliable resource for us, and for the technical support that they always provide us. So thank you again. Thanks for this recognition. And I'll leave it at, word on the street is there is a electric garbage truck out there somewhere.
All right.
So that's something maybe we'll bring back to you one of these days and look at that option too. But that is out there somewhere. So thanks again.
Mr. Hecht and Ms. Barrett and all the others involved. There's so many parties. Not only helping implement what the council wishes, but it's what the majority of Cary citizens want. We want clean energy, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. Thank you. We now come to the Public Speaks Out portion of our meeting. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum on the printed agenda. If you'd like to speak, please take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. There's a 3-minute time limit that I'll have to enforce to be fair to all of our speakers. There's a timer located on the speaker's podium, and when that green light on the timer turns to yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when the time expires, it'll turn to a flashing red light. And at that point, I'm going to interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers, and ask you to immediately conclude your comments. I thank all of our speakers in advance for adhering to our 3-minute time limit. And we also ask that groups have a spokesperson to speak on behalf of all the people they represent rather than having repetitive comments. I thank everyone in our audience for respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud or make remarks from your seat or anything else that might distract from this meeting. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out. And I'll invite the first speaker to the podium at this time on the aisle to my right. And give your clerk the completed contact card or items you want council to see.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Len Neiman, and I ride C-Tran. And that also means I walk a lot. And I'm here to tell you we have a problem when it comes to cars and pedestrians interacting, and it's getting worse as the holidays are getting closer. The most concerning being cars making rights on red without slowing down, never mind coming to a complete stop as required by General Statute 20-158, which is what's being passed out to you. In the last month, I have come close to being hit 4 times by vehicles making right-on red turns without stopping. The latest being yesterday down at O'Donnell and Walnut down by the Cookout. In all 4 cases, the driver was totally focused on seeing if there was oncoming traffic from the left, and seeing none, proceeded to turn right without stopping or checking for pedestrians. These are not isolated incidents. Many of my fellow C-Tran riders have told me of similar incidents, several involving parents with children trying to cross at intersections controlled by lights with pedestrian signals. This problem is also happening at intersections clearly posted no right turn on red. For example, Walnut Street at Maynard Road is so posted in both directions of Walnut. Yet in the last week, while walking back and forth to Cary Town Mall, which is near my house, I have counted over a dozen cars making right-on red turns from Walnut Street from one side or the other onto Maynard, and many times without stopping. I believe the solution to this is going to be a combination of increased enforcement and possibly better driver education, possibly through public service announcements and signage at these intersections saying, stop before you turn. All I know is something needs to be done, or sooner or later, probably sooner, somebody's going to be seriously injured or killed. Thank you for your time, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Neiman. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out?
Good evening. I'm J.W. Sharon with IDS. I'm here to talk about 14 REZ 08. In particular, I think a lot of times when we look at these rezoning cases, we focus on bigger issues and we forget to think from the past. Most importantly, the clients that I represent on Joaquina Road, there are 14 of them. Most of them are elderly. Most of them were never part of Cary when they built there. In 1988, the town extended its jurisdiction. And if many of you remember, there were not a lot of happy people when Cary grew west, but they did come into your jurisdiction. They were rezoned from Wake County to town of Cary zoning. In addition to that, the town wisely developed land use plans for development in that area. And in doing so, the residents have continued to participate and live in those properties with the expectation that at some point in their lives, they would take that and move on. We have tried desperately to meet all the requirements necessary for road impacts in that area, on and off site, even including up to 55. We have worked jointly with the YMCA and the Phillips to address all traffic concerns that have been suggested by our traffic studies. In addition to that, we hope that it helps with the situation as it relates to school of a no net impact, limiting construction on that site until the school is open. We are open to continue to work towards a goal of success. These owners are just asking, what more can we do, JW? We want to be like everyone else. And with that, we're hoping that we can get support. If not, what direction can we go to get that? We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Could I get you to move to your left, please, sir?
Good evening,
Could I get you to move to your left?
Just-
Thank you.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for a couple of minutes.
Could you give us your name, please?
My name is William Hill,
Thank you, sir.
and my wife and I own two properties on Joaquina Road. Those addresses are 1509 and 1517, and we purchased these properties in 1973. And we purchased and moved on to this property the same year. Of course, we were out in the country, and that was what we had desired to do for years. And over the years, of course, many things have changed. We had a Marshall address when we moved out there. Of course, now it's part of Cary. And over the years, we have been surrounded by development, so things have really changed for us. There's a tremendous amount of maintenance associated with our properties. Our two properties are a little over 6 acres, and we're in our mid-70s and have more difficulty maintaining the properties the way that they need to be maintained. So we're asking for your support to rezone these properties so we can move on, hopefully, to the next phase in our life. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out.
My name is Bonnie Skinner. I live at 1705 Joaquina Road, and we have lived there since 1978. My husband and I have been there for 37 years. We raised our two daughters there. When we bought our property and had our house built, it was a dirt road. Our neighbors all got together and we paid to have the road paved. I've always called our 4 acres my little slice of heaven. Once I turned off Highway 55, you could shut out all the hustle and bustle of the outside world, but that is no longer true. Since Highcroft has started building homes on our roads, every morning until dark, you hear hammering and big trucks moving dirt and the annoying sound of beep beep when the trucks back up. I have heard that two of the main concerns for this area is the roads and schools that cannot support the additional homes for the area we have for sale. You have to realize that surrounding neighborhoods have been in existence for 10 or less years, and some of our neighbors have been here for 40 years. I believe that the council needs to consider the residents who have lived here longer than the surrounding developments have been here. Please consider the impact of what not selling would have on our neighborhood. My husband and I are fast approaching 70, and it's time for us to sell and move on to a much peaceful environment. We all want to get back to a normal life, and that can happen if the council would vote to pass the proposal represented tonight. This is my first time speaking in public. I've been very nervous about it, but this is a very important issue for our whole neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Steve Reese. Thank you for letting me speak to you again. I spoke to you, I don't know, a month or so ago, basically about this same issue, and my feelings have not changed. Like I say, I'm part of this clan on 1721 Joaquina Road. I've lived there for 28 years, so I'm just a youngster in comparison to a lot of these folks. I have the same feelings that they do. We've raised 2 children there. We've enjoyed it. And it's time for us to move on and let someone else enjoy it. This is a little jewel that's been buried over there for many years that's open to you all now to make good use of. There's a lot of great land, great opportunities, and we would really like to see this go forth and be finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Tina Hammer, and I also have a traffic concern. Mine is at the corner of Kilmaine and Maynard. There have been 2 times when I've been sitting in the left turn lane on Kilmaine, going to turn left on Maynard, behind the stop bar, and a semi has come to turn, and I've had to back up significantly. Thank goodness there was nobody behind me, but I've had to back up significantly so that I wouldn't get run over. And the second time it happened, I backed up. When I saw a semi coming, I backed up and waited, and they acknowledged that and started making the turn. And before they were finished the turn, the semi literally was right here next to my face, and I had to just lay on the horn. And they stopped moving, and I was able to back up again. But it's a terrifying experience. And I would love to see there be a sign there indicating, and for people, I think their truck's coming out of Food Lion, because they're not allowed to turn left on Maynard there. But I would love to see there be a sign and have, Food Lion make sure people know not to go and turn left there in a semi, because there's just not space. And my suggestion for where they would turn is to go back out to the front of the parking lot that's on Kildare and turn out there, since there's no other option on Maynard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Shiver, could you have someone from staff look into that? And I believe we have Ms. Hammer's contact information, and let her know what we found and what we're planning on doing.
Yes, sir, we'll do that.
Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, will close Public Speaks Out. And we move now to the consent agenda portion of tonight's meeting, which is item 4. For the benefit of people watching on TV, we're going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. Keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, preliminary resolution for issuing revenue bonds, North Carolina Arts Council grant for a creative capital workshop, First Amendment to the interlocal agreement for the maintenance of the American Tobacco Trail, electric vehicle charging station pilot report, Black Creek Greenway easement abandonment, license fee increase, bid award South Cary Water Reclamation Facilities Biosolids Aeration Improvements Project, request for reimbursement contract courtyards at O'Kelly Chapel, certification of sufficiency and resolution calling for a public hearing for owner-initiated annexation petitions 14A16 Weldon Ridge and 14A17 Herndon property, rezoning 14 REZ 13 for Cross Point Church YMCA and accompanying comprehensive plan consistency statement. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to public hearings. Same rules that we had for public speaks out apply for public hearings with one exception. Instead of 3 minutes, you now have 5 minutes. The first public hearing is for the Cary Park PDD Amendment, Waterford 2 rezoning request. We're going to hear from staff and allow the applicant to explain the request, and then we will conduct a public hearing. Council will not take action on this item tonight. Instead, we're going to refer it to the town's Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Grant.
Thank you. Good evening. For your consideration is a request for an amendment to a portion of the Cary Park PDD located near the intersection of Port Stewart Drive and Cary Glen Boulevard on approximately 7.25 acres. The subject property is shown here on the south side of Cary Glen Boulevard, highlighted in yellow. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. The existing land use plan designation for the property is high-density residential. The subject property is located in the Cary Park PDD. There is a proposed amendment to the PDD to amend the existing conditions. This area highlighted in red shows you that there are 2 multifamily attached residential buildings on the property, currently the Waterford 2 condominiums, 2 24-unit buildings. And then there's a large portion of the property that is vacant. It has the infrastructure in place. It's been vacant for a number of years. The applicant is proposing to come in with a plan to put townhomes on this vacant property, which would be a permitted use, but the density is less than what is currently required in the PDD document. There's a minimum density of 10 dwelling units per acre. So they came in for a pre-application conference, realized they would need a PDD amendment to adjust that density, make it less dense, and then also just address a few minor things pertaining to the dimensional standards, which are outlined in your staff report. So this is what was submitted with their application. We've highlighted the area in red line, dashed red line, that shows the vacant portion of the property where the amendments would take place to allow the townhomes with a lower density than the 10 currently required by the PDD. All the open space that's in place would remain. Property owners within 800 feet of the entire parcel were notified by mail. There were no protest petitions, and staff did hear support from the residents of the Waterford condominiums. In fact, the majority of the residents there signed the initial application and were part of the rezoning request because it impacted land that they were part of. There is a stream buffer adjacent to the subject property. And this shows you the location of existing and proposed greenway trails in the general vicinity of the subject property. Cary's transportation plan identifies Cary Glen Boulevard as a collector road, as is Cortland View Drive adjacent to the property. And there is a proposed future transit route on Green Level Church Road in close proximity to the site as well. This concludes staff's presentation. Following the applicant's comments, I'll be available for your questions.
Thank you. At this time, I'd invite the applicant down.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Glenda Topp with Glenda Topp and Associates, and I'm here tonight representing the applicant. Staff did an excellent job going over the proposed amendment. What I'd like to do is just hit a couple of key points. As Ms. Grannon mentioned, the proposal is to amend the conditions associated with a portion of track MR2B. The conditions, as was pointed out, has a maximum density of 15 units per acre and a minimum density of 10 units per acre. The plans that are being proposed, as was mentioned for the townhomes, is proposing a density that is less than the minimum threshold, which is why we are proposing the amendment to go down to 6 units per acre. The site plan for the Waterford at Cary Park Phase 2 was approved in 1996, and at that time, the plans called for 5 buildings, and only 2 have been built since that time. The proposed townhome project, or the plans for the property, would finally allow the current undeveloped portion of the property, where many of you, I'm sure, have seen pads that are undeveloped. This would enable those pads to finally be developed. As staff pointed out, concerning the homeowners association, the applicant met with the association, and they are overwhelmingly in support of the proposed amendment. First of all, they are excited to see something finally happening as part of this amendment and with an agreement. I just want to point out that the parking lot that's out there that has not been finished will be finished. Again, there are things that have not happened that this will finally take care of. In addition to meeting with the association, they also held a meeting with the property owners within 800 feet of the proposal. And for those people who attended that meeting, they were also in support. So in summary, the proposed amendment would allow for a lower density. The density would allow for less number of units, less impact on the infrastructure, less impact on schools. And we feel it is a good use of the property, and it does correspond with other development that is in the area and would be compatible with that. And I'm here to answer any questions, as are people that are representing the applicant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing and invite the first speaker to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Barrett Jason. I'm the acting president of the Waterford 1 condominiums, excuse me, which are directly across the street from Waterford 2. And we would like to express, as the board of directors and the Waterford 1 community, our full support for Waterford 2's request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker for this public hearing. Anyone else for the public hearing on the rezoning for Cary Park PDD Waterford 2? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. I really like the lower density.
I was going to say, comment would be very positive.
Well, I think, I don't know if y'all remember this, but about a year ago, we had a lot of parents in this area who were complaining about the unfinished nature of this site and how their sons were finding harm and getting into trouble over there because it was this unfinished site. So it'll be nice to have it completed.
Okay, this will go to the Planning and Zoning Board for their consideration. This is we're in the middle of a multi-month process, so stay tuned. We are now moving to item 5.2. It's the Pittard Farm property rezoning request. Once again, we're going to hear from our staff and allow the applicant to explain the request. We're going to conduct a public hearing, and council will not act on this rezoning request tonight. Instead, we're going to refer it to our Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation. Ms. Bierman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to rezone about 21 acres on Good Hope School Road. This is a vicinity map. You can see Good Hope School Road on the southern boundary of the site. It's about a quarter mile to the east of NC 55 highway. The existing zoning for this site is ORD, Office Research and Development. The property owner contacted staff several months ago asking if a detached dwelling could be moved onto the property. Because this is in the ORD district, detached dwelling is not a permitted use, so a rezoning was necessary in order to accomplish that. The proposed zoning district is R40 conditional use, which would allow detached dwellings. The zoning conditions are proposed as well with that would prohibit school and religious assembly uses. With these conditions, none of the uses that would be permitted by right would trigger a traffic study, which is why these conditions are included. The land use plan designates the site for low-density residential. This is per the Cary land use plan and also the Carpenter community plan. This shows the boundary of the Carpenter community plan and also the Carpenter historic district in relation to the site, which you can see in the purple highlight. There are several stream buffers on the site according to Cary's GIS maps. This would, final determination of these features would be made at the time of a site plan or subdivision approval. There are no park or greenway facilities in the vicinity. On Cary's transportation plan, we do show that the future extension of McCrimmon Parkway would go across the northern portion of the site, and also there's a future realignment of Good Hope Church Road when the property is developed in the future that would extend through a portion of the site. With regard to transit facilities, the nearest transit route is a triangle transit route on NC 55. This map shows properties that were notified of the public hearing. Those are the properties within 800 feet. We did receive one protest petition because of the small area impacted. It is not valid. With regard to the comments in that petition, there was opposition expressed to any future extension of Pilot Hill Drive, which is a subdivision to the north of the property that has a road that has the access onto Marsville or McCrimmon Parkway. And that concludes staff's comments. Following the applicant's comments in the public hearing will be available for questions.
Very good. At this time, I would invite the applicant forward.
Good evening. My name is Michael Phillips. I am co-owner of Phillips Farms. You guys have probably heard of it. I'll keep this short and sweet. I plan on moving an existing house there, which was my grandparents, and a barn off of 6801 Indian Wells Road. I would like to move it there, start a family there. Those are pretty much my intentions. I'd like my kids to grow up the way that I grew up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now's the time for the public hearing for the rezoning request 14 REZ 34, and I would invite the first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? I'll close the public hearing, and now's the time for council to ask questions or make comments. I have a question that I'd like to start off with, just to clarify. McCrimmon is going to go across the north. The I can't think of the name of it.
Pilot Hill Drive.
Good Hope Church.
Good Hope Church is going to change directions, which leaves that crossing, since railroad crossings are a big deal these days, that means that crossing will go away?
It's a bridge.
What?
It bridges.
That's going to be a bridge.
It's bridged already.
Already.
Okay.
But it's a little, you could answer the question, I could answer, but you answer it.
I would probably need to check with their transportation staff to see what the future.
The railroad is bridged.
Okay, so it's bridged already, and it's just this little old bridge, and I think our intent eventually was to not have it carry vehicles in the future when everything got developed around here. Instead, I think it was going to be somehow tied in with our Greenway network, and we're going to use that for Greenway, but that's my recollection from a while
Yes,
ago.
that's exactly right.
Woohoo! All right.
Yay. What Greenway? Do we know that?
Is it Hatcher? Is that what it's called? Hatcher Grove Greenway? All right, none of us know.
Okay. Other comments?
Well, I have a question real fast. I think this is fantastic, and I'm glad to see that Mr. Phillips would like to, have a family here, and I just think that's great. My question has to do with the person who filed a protest on Pilot Hill Drive. even if Mr. Phillips were to come and put his house here, it would be a long, long time before Pilot Hill Drive needed to extend. So perhaps the person filing this protest really didn't understand how this actually was in his or her favor. But the question I have for you is, has the town put the sign up that says future extension on this stub? Or is this somehow one of these streets that didn't get a sign? Because it's important for us, for all of our citizens, to understand that if their street just stubs, there's a reason for it. It's not because we didn't feel like putting a cul-de-sac there. So,
And I don't know the answer to that, but
Okay.
I'll certainly find that out prior to when this moves forward to the Planning and Zoning Board. And
okay.
include that.
I think it would be very helpful if somebody from staff could actually explain to this person that it's in his or her favor to have this used in this manner versus having it stay the ORD. But then also if somebody else could go out there and, stick one of those signs in the ground so that they're not thinking that forever they're going to be.
And there also, when you look at the plan through here too, McCrimmon, there may not have been an understanding that the McCrimmon Parkway extension would ultimately be coming through here so
Yeah.
that connects to McCrimmon. And when you look at the transportation plan, those roads look to be offset
Okay.
as well, so.
Okay, yeah, if somebody could just explain it to that citizen, but make sure that those are signed out there so everybody understands a stub is a stub for a reason. That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, very good. This will also go to the Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation, and we will see it in the future. We've now reached discussion items. We're at item 6.1, Wake County Transit Investment Strategy Study Advisory Committee appointments. Mr. Bolston will present this item, and council may take action.
Good evening, Mayor and
Say
Council.
that committee name several times in a row really fast.
I'll find something.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As you are aware, Wake County is kicking off a new transit investment strategy study. December 8th will be a kickoff meeting. As part of that, Wake County has asked all the municipalities and other stakeholders in the county to identify members to be a part of an advisory committee. This advisory committee would be tasked with soliciting feedback from key stakeholders and would help develop a choices report for the county for future transit. Staff recommends that council appoint 6 individuals to serve on this advisory committee and authorize the town manager or designated staff to notify the selected appointees of the upcoming meetings and events.
Okay, there were categories for these 6 items. I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, do you have
You got a piece of paper?
Oh, I'm writing on the back of it. That's why I didn't see it. Very good. The paper, for those that don't know, have the categories and the nominees, I believe, that have said they would be willing to serve. Is that correct? Okay. So we can start from that. Should we take these one at a time, or are we going to take them all at once? How do we want to do this?
My only question is that there were 5 categories, and there are 6 individuals that we need to name.
And there's 7 on the
There's 7
paper.
on the list.
And there's 7 total names.
Sure.
So
So we gotta get somebody off.
Yeah.
If we appointed 7, would they be cool with that?
They're having quite a challenge in keeping the number close to 70, but we can, I think that may be an issue. I think we really need to stick with 6. Yes, sir.
So if there are 5 categories, does that mean we pick 2 people for one of the categories?
That's correct.
6? That's how that works?
We aren't required to pick one person in every single category, are we?
You're not. What they're trying to do is just to get a good mix
Good
of
mix,
people
exactly.
from.
But if we didn't fit from one category, that would be okay.
That could be okay, I think.
Okay.
Well, I just have one comment. First off, I'm very excited about Julia Rudy's name on here, having seen her on P&Z, having met her and spoken with her. Very excited about that. There's only 3 meetings that are currently planned. The kickoff meeting, which is just a 2-hour meeting, a second meeting in December, and then an all-day workshop on the 20th. I think the bulk and meat, and correct me if I'm wrong from someone for staff, but the bulk and meat of this is really going to be on that January 20th. And I feel that if a citizen can't attend that, and I totally understand, very difficult with jobs and all that, that perhaps that's not the right person to be on this committee, and that might be an opportunity to take it down to the requisite 6. I'd hate to appoint someone who's not going to be there for the most important part, even though I really value her opinion. She's very thoughtful, and I feel bad about that. Certainly.
According to the planning consultants, the December 8th kickoff meeting would not really be mandatory because the group is going to hear the information provided in that, plus a lot more detail on the 9th. And what we've been informed is the meeting on the 9th is critical for the committee members to have the background to really roll up their sleeves and get some work done on the 20th of January.
So the 20th is, out of those 3 days, is an important part. If someone couldn't make the 20th?
The 9th is very critical, and the 20th would be, both of them should be mandatory, because that's when they're really developing the choices report that's going to go out to the public in February.
Okay.
Sounds like you've
Yeah,
solved our problem.
I think that's a reasonable approach. I think Julia would have made a phenomenal addition to this group, and I'm sad that she's not able to make it there on the 20th.
I am too.
It's really unfortunate, but we'll remember her name then for something else of importance, because she has a lot to contribute.
Absolutely, and I don't know how these things come to council in general, but we had practically no time for us to turn around and
Everybody
provide
scrambling.
recommendation. Everyone's
Yeah, I just
scrambling.
heard about Raleigh scrambling, doing the same thing.
So it's a shame, because she would have been a great addition to this.
Not to mention the clerk staff calling everybody up and asking if they would be willing to serve.
It's
So-
very fortunate we have 6 people who are.
Right.
We need 6, and we have 6.
So do you need a motion, Mayor?
Yes, please.
I move that with the exception of D, Citizen Advocate Julia Rudy, that we appoint the 6 remaining nominees to the Wake County Transit Investment Strategy Study Advisory Committee.
Can you give us the names, or should we list the names?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Do you want them by category, or shall I
Just
just
list the names.
So Lori Bush, Don France, Kyle Greer, Waz Watson, Lynn Neiman, and Howard Manning.
Just a correction, his name is Wes. That's a typo.
I thought that was an interesting first name, Wes Watson.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We now move to item 6.2, Triangle Water Supply Plan. Mr. Miller will present the item. We'll have council take action afterwards. Mr. Miller.
Good evening, Council. Before you is a resolution in support of the Jordan Lake Partnership's Triangle Regional Water Supply Plan. The Triangle Regional Water Supply Plan shows how the 13 members of the partnership, all of the major water systems in the region, including the town of Cary, can meet their water supply needs through the year 2060. The Triangle Regional Water Supply Plan is consistent with the town's long-term plans for water supply and supports the town's request to the state for additional Jordan Lake water supply allocation. Supporting the Triangle Regional Water Supply Plan benefits the town and the region. Staff recommends that council adopt the resolution. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Councils have questions or comments or a motion?
Motion to accept the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you,
Mr.
Council.
Miller. We now move to item 6.3, rezoning request for Wakena Road. Staff will give a report. We're going to hear from the Planning and Zoning Board about their recommendation, and council may take action. This item will require a simple majority. Ms. Grannon.
Thank you. This is a request to rezone approximately 58.1 acres located along Wakena Road and portions of Indian Wells Road. Subject properties are shown here, highlighted in yellow. Cary's land use plan designation is medium-density residential, and then there's a portion of the property zoned for, or with a land use plan designation of parks and open space. And a note on the land use plan that talks about the substantial mix of housing types, but in the event of single-family detached, which is what is proposed, no mix shall be required. The existing zoning is residential 40, and the applicant has proposed residential 8 conditional use and resource recreation for a portion of the property that's proposed to remain as open space. Conditions proposed by the applicant would limit the development to 130 detached residential units. The applicant has recently offered a condition that the developer or owner shall not submit a real estate plat for the subdivision of more than 11 lots prior to January 1st, 2016. And there are a number of traffic mitigations proposed in the staff report. There were no protest petitions. There was concern from an adjacent property owner when this was initially presented as how the development would impact their ability to develop, and that property owner has subsequently submitted a rezoning request themselves. Staff has expressed concerns when this has been presented in the past that there are some gaps in development along the future planned route for Highcroft Drive, a collector road in the vicinity, and that we also wanted to note that there has been a collaboration with this developer and other rezoning cases in the vicinity to address specific traffic mitigations, which are detailed in your staff report. This is a map to give you an overview of the rezoning cases that are either recently approved or being considered at the current time for rezoning. This evening, on the consent agenda, you approved the Cross Point Church YMCA request. Tonight, the Phillips property was tabled. The request for the removal of the buffer associated with rezoning case 14 REZ 16 was tabled. There is a rezoning case that was presented for a public hearing but has not been presented to the Planning and Zoning Board for properties on the south side of Joaquina. And then in green is this case, the subject property. The blue line, dashed blue line, shows the location, approximate location of the future Highcroft Collector Avenue. The applicant has been in touch with a number of staff members and town council members about opportunities to look at future development for this road. At this point in time, as they indicated during Public Speaks Out, they'd like to get some feedback from council as to other concerns that you have with this request. Again, this shows in blue the future Highcroft Collector Avenue and the proximity of the subject property to NC 55 highway, a major thoroughfare. Joaquina is a collector road. And this again shows the concerns and issues with the Highcroft connectivity, where the subject development is proposed, highlighted in the salmon color, and where there's gaps in the development. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended the request for approval by a vote of 6-2. At this time, I'd like to call upon the Vice Chair to present their observations on the request.
Good evening.
Welcome.
As Ms. Grannon told you, 6-2 was the vote on that, and the concerns that were voiced at the Planning and Zoning meeting are, I'm sure, the same concerns you're well aware of. That while you take zoning cases on their own individual merits, as each case comes to us, we review that case only on its own merits. In total, if you look at the picture, there's an awful lot of mitigation that needs to be done. So one of the members in voting his dissent did point that out, that we really need to start thinking more broadly about how we would address these larger, more holistic concerns for mitigation, especially traffic. He did bring up schools, but traffic was the big thing. But at the same time, it was one individual zoning case, and we have to look at that case. And a no vote would at least call attention to that. There were some other comments, though, mostly with the Highcroft Road extension that you saw, where there's going to be some parts of Highcroft and then no parts and then some parts some more. And there was a little concern where how that might be done, and a concern that perhaps it would be incumbent eventually, in fact, one member actually mentioned this, that it would be our responsibility. The town would take up the completion of that road by whatever means necessary, acquiring the property, appropriating the funding, design, building, and all that, rather than playing a waiting game waiting for all the development to take place. No one likes a waiting game because in the end, the people who live around there, who will move there, they're the losers in that. So the concerns about the total versus the individual cases, and as you saw, there's 4 or 5 individual cases already decided and a few more on the plate. They were what really got the attention of the 2 dissenting votes. It would have been nice to see a more consolidated approach, but of course that's not obligatory by any way. I have any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to do so.
Question?
Could you tell us, I mean, we heard a lot about the dissenting opinion. Can you tell us what the discussion was or what the comments were for those in favor?
Certainly. The favor was once again density. Density being reduced was always very attractive to us because that really speaks directly to the pressure on the overall area. Also, as you heard a little bit earlier, there has been a great deal of outreach, a great deal of effort to mitigate in total. And one thing I do want to point out is these cases individually, in many instances, go above and beyond what's individually obligated to try to address the holistic problem. They may not go completely that whole way, but there's a great deal of effort and good faith attempts to mitigate as many problems as possible, and we acknowledge that in the affirmative.
Other questions?
Good feedback.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, staff is done. Our turn. Questions, comments?
Well, I'll guess I'll start.
Okay.
For those of you in the audience who came and spoke, my heart goes out for you because I understand the desire and the need to move on. And the challenge that we have is really, for me personally, I think it's the pressure that we have on the schools. Our middle school that serves this area is over capacity by, I think, 800 students at this point. And there is no plan to build another middle school before, I think, 2019 at the earliest we could hope for at this point. We found out in the last couple days that Panther Creek will be capped for the next, whenever, I guess they'll probably vote on that sometime in February or March. And these are real serious pressures for our community. So what we're experiencing is an outcry from the people who live in this area who are trying to send their children to these schools and they're overcrowded, and driving on the roads that are, needing some work, which really that is not my biggest concern in this case. It really is the schools. And people are asking us, how can you approve more development and more density when we have our schools under so much pressure? So we don't take that very lightly. We don't take your needs very lightly either. I've met now with the county commissioners, a couple of them, and 3 of the school board members to try to highlight this problem and try to move the needle on what's the standard is, what's being done. I mean, move that time frame in some way. And I think we'll continue to have these conversations. I believe many of you have had conversations as well, so I'm not the only one having these conversations. And I say that because I want y'all to know that we're not being flippant in our decisions. At least, I can only speak for myself. I don't know how anybody else is going to vote, but I myself, I'm not flippant in my decision, in my feeling of needing to deny this because of our school capacity. And it's not just your project, it's been several other projects in this area. I'm taking it very seriously, and I'm trying to change what's happening so that we can get back to business and have some communities built out here. I will say, I think what I've seen of this proposal is very good. I like the fact that you've capped it at 3 units. I really do want you guys to be successful. It's just, in my opinion, it's not right now because of the problems that we have. And if I were in your shoes, and I don't know how anybody else is going to vote, but if I were in your shoes and I feared that this vote might go down, I would consider tabling this with, and I don't know what their standard is for how long they can table, if it can be for several months, but if you could just give us time to try to keep working on this and find some resolution for our school problem, that would, if I were in your shoes, that'd probably be my preferred route rather than having a potential of a denial, but y'all need to do what you need to do. So that's, it's hard. It's really hard, and I wish we were not in this situation.
Yeah, the schools are an issue. I can provide some more information. Maybe people don't realize this. Wake County has over 1 million people, and there's 22 children coming into Wake County every day. That's an elementary class.
Wow.
So that's 365 elementary class children every day.
Yeah, that's born.
Yeah, that's born. That's right.
Not just
It's
moving here. They're not moving here, they're being born.
It's a huge issue all across the county, and all the municipalities are facing it. We, like you said, we've been talking with county commissioners, school board members, and feedback I'm getting, the first relief we're going to see in high schools is 2018. First relief we're going to see in elementary schools is after 2016. And you talked about middle schools, which is way out there. So this is going to be an issue, continuing issue that we're going to face, like you said, that we'll continue to discuss. Other.
So do we just put this and or any other projects like this in West Cary? Do we just say no more till 2019, 2020? I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
I hope it doesn't come to that. I mean, I hope it's not 2019, 2020. I'm really hopeful that this elected body can impress upon the Wake County Commissioners and the school board the dire need to have a middle school built in this area. I mean, this, in my opinion, is a crisis. And we have a fantastic town where a lot of people want to live, but if we keep bringing people in without the resources, it's going to degrade the quality of living here. It's a problem.
Part of me looks at it as I don't necessarily know that every person that would buy one of these homes is moving here. One of my kids might buy one of these homes. One of my neighbor's kids might buy one of these homes. A lot of these people that have moved to Cary in the past are those that were born and raised here in Cary, and then they have families and kids. They might want their kids to stay in Cary and buy a home. So I don't look at it as we're stopping people from coming and therefore filling up more of our class seats. In some ways, we're keeping some of our own family members from continuing to live in Cary and stay in Cary. And I don't know that's what I want. I don't want to say, well, sorry, the schools are over capacity, so we're just not going to build any more homes. So now my kids have to move to Apex or Holly Springs or Garner, which at the end of the day is still part of the county-wide school system.
That's the dilemma.
Regardless, these homes, if they were built, or the homes that were already approved to be built adjacent to this site, regardless of the number of kids that are generated from that, the county's going to find them a seat to sit in. It's going to happen.
Yes, that is true.
Quite frankly, maybe if we weren't bringing so many other kids from other communities into these schools, then we'd have more seats for those that live next to the schools. Whole other debate. I'm struggling this from a fairness standpoint in that we've approved development with this exact same zoning contiguous to these properties. So we said to their neighbors, now it's okay for you to build, but now we got to turn off the spigot, we got to stop, so you guys have to wait till 2018, 2019, 2020. When the reality is the schools is always an issue. Some of us got elected because of schools issues. I don't know that it's ever going to go away. I totally appreciate and hear the concerns, and I would echo a number of those concerns, but I'm not going to hold this property hostage because of it. So I kind of just have I guess, a different take on it than maybe some of my colleagues do, but I love the low density. I love the fact that you've got multiple property owners who have come together and worked together to try to, build a more cohesive community instead of piecemealing it. They've put some conditions that they won't plat more than 11 lots till January of 2016 to at least hopefully give the schools a little time to catch up. Reality is before any of these school homes are built, the kids that are in the middle school now, they'll be in high school. So they won't even be at the school. They've collaborated to address a number of traffic issues. As much as I appreciate the concerns, I don't know that I'd vote against this tonight. If we were talking 300-400 apartment units, yeah, I get it. But here's an opportunity to get a high-quality, low-density type product in an area that we've kind of said that's what we want, and that's recently what we've approved to properties adjacent to it. So I'd support it. That's where I'm coming from.
Other comments, questions? Mr. Yaw?
Well, it's a difficult one, and you've heard really good points from everybody. It's difficult for me because it involves conflicting responsibilities. What do I mean by that? We have a responsibility to the property owners, many of whom spoke to us today and who have had property there for years and years and years. We have a responsibility to allow them to develop their land as long as it falls within the parameters of our land use plan, and this certainly does. We can't argue that. And I respect that right to do that. At the same time, we have a responsibility to the homeowners nearby the subject properties who have moved in there. Granted, some of them may have moved from Cary there. That's an interesting point. Hadn't thought of that, Don. But I think most of them have moved from elsewhere. And they've done a lot of research. They've come here to Cary and built their homes because they realize that Cary is such a great place, maybe the best place to live, work, play, drive, and go to school. And I think we have a responsibility to deliver on that. And that's where I got the problem. The applicant has been great to work with. I mean, the newly added conditions since this first started have all been in the right direction. Have they gone far enough? I have a concern also that the new schools that have been talked about are elementary schools. They're not necessarily in the immediate vicinity. They're going to help, that's for sure. But the middle school is lacking. We hear Panther Creek now has an issue. I really would like to see this land developed similar to what it's planned to be at some point. I just have a hurdle to cross here and now. And I look back, and it's funny how it's in front of us for every rezoning, and we never really look at it. In each staff report, it mentions that the LDO, the criteria for consideration on reviewing rezonings. And it's something we get so used to looking at, we don't ever look at it. There are 6 criteria. Number 3 says, and hopefully I got it right here, the town and other service providers will be able to provide sufficient public safety, educational, recreational, transportation, and utility facilities and services to the subject property while maintaining sufficient levels of support to existing development. And I'm just not sure that that criterion is met in its entirety. So with all due respect to all folks involved, I'm leaning on the no side on this one.
Other comments?
I had a question, if I might. Ms. Grannon, so the Phillips property was pulled tonight. Is that right?
Tabled.
Tabled,
Correct.
pardon. And I realized they were one of the groups that worked on the joint traffic mitigation agreement. What happens to those traffic mitigation plans with the Phillips property tabled? Because that was one of the things we met with them to talk about, was how well they'd work together and how this was going to fit and why it doesn't solve, certainly nothing's going to solve all the problems unless 55 gets, widened. It certainly would have an impact on this. What will happen to that joint plan?
Well, each of the applicants has elected to address specific traffic mitigations.
So if this plan were to pass, then what they've agreed to do would happen.
Correct.
The why, obviously, would happen. Depending on what happened, Phillips, those things would or would not happen based on what happens with the Phillips case.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is it's a 5149. If I really believed that delaying this would help the problem, I would agree with you, because you're right on the points. But these settlers are coming, and we're not going to stop it. We delay it. All I see is it's continuing around us at higher density. And I think we have an opportunity here with all the collaboration going with all the other properties and everything else. And I think what's happening is the community is getting more aware that regardless what we do, the commissioners and the school board feet have to be held to the fire. And I think that came out this past November. That's what I struggle with, because I think you're making great points. But delaying it to the 6th of January 2016 and having less density, I'm just inclined to believe that we keep the pressure on, and we recognize that we have a right to those property owners to let them build within reasonable constraints. And I think by coming in with less density, working on some of the traffic mitigation, they're dealing with some of that. But I don't have an answer for the other points you brought up, because you're right, at the same time. So I think this just becomes a judgment call on, what impact you think this vote's going to have to really deal with that school problem. And I just personally, question, we got 2 dominoes down, and now we're in the middle of the dominoes falling for all those other rezonings. I just think the time to have done that is at the beginning of all this. And, again, I respect all the points of view on this one. I think this is a tough one, but I think enough's been done to demonstrate the good faith effort to work within our plans and our zoning for that area. That's just my thoughts on it.
Ms. Bush?
So I'm torn. I try not to make my mind up until I come to the table, so I hear what all my council colleagues say. I have to agree, and I don't want to repeat what everyone else said, so I'll try not to repeat that. But it's a good plan. The density's at the low end. They've taken an opportunity to do something that I haven't seen before, at least from this respect, to partner on the traffic improvements. They addressed the school issues the best that they could, and they pushed off the occupancy to be at or less than what is there for a year, a couple of years, I guess, how you look at it. On the other hand, this is going to add 100 kids to the school, just this property alone. And I think our P&Z Vice Chair said it best, where you talk about the fact that planning and zoning really looks at that property, but council has to take a little bit more of a holistic view. And how is this impacting our entire community? And that's where we are with the schools. We are at the point now that schools open with modular units, right? They open, even though I understand the notes from Bill Fletcher and several others have said, we try not to open at capacity, but they're opening at capacity.
With modular units.
With modular units. And I feel it is perhaps not fair to these rezonings that are coming in later to be implicated now in some of the challenges that we're seeing that are happening later on. So it's what I would call a right dilemma. They're both right. And if we had, I think the traffic concerns are very applicable as well. We have Highcroft that's going to be bits and pieces. So even any traffic mitigation won't happen until the entire collector is built. And one of my biggest concerns is that this great collaboration for traffic that these three have put together starts to fall apart if they don't all pass. Feel a little bit handcuffed by that we just, on the consent, was Cross Point, which is going to widen 55, which is fantastic. We need it. But all these people are going to come to the Y now, and they're going to hit the problem at Indian Wells if they enter from the south, and we won't have anything to fix it unless these two properties go through as well. So we're a little bit tied over a barrel.
Yeah. Can I just ask a comment? And I was thinking about when Jack was talking. What I would love is for all of the rezonings that we've been getting for the last couple months and all the ones that we're going to get in the next couple months to all come in under one vote. And so we could say, wow, 1,700 units or 3,200 units, whatever it is, and vote on it at one time. It's really painful to have to vote on each one of these because each one is not the thing that's going to kill the schools. It's just one segment of the problem. And that's what, I mean, Don, I don't discount what you've said. I think you've made some great points, and Jack, you've made some great points. I do think I truly think this is a 51-49 kind of issue. It's a very tough decision. If we weren't in a school crisis, I would embrace this project and say, wow, this is fantastic. 3 units per acre cap, 130 units cap, this is fantastic. It's a great location, it's a great pocket, as it was described. It's very nice. It just makes it very challenging, so I respect it. I respect the differences of opinion at this table.
Other comments or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve 14 REZ 08.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Further discussion?
Yeah. I feel like waiting for the school system and or the county to solve our school problems is a pie in the sky kind of dream that's never going to happen. I remember back when, Green Hope and Panther Creek were constructed, and that was going to solve our high school problems. And just like Ms. Bush said, they opened with modulars and trailers. They started cut 1 year and then add another year because they don't want to bring all 4 years in at one time. By the time the second year, the darn thing was 300 kids over capacity or something. It's, at the end of the day, it's bad planning on the school system's part and or the county. I mean, we tell them, and have been for years, how many units are coming, what's been approved, what's in the pipeline, what do we see coming, our land use plans. They know what's coming. It's always a case of catch-up because in some ways, that's how we operate and kind of how we're supposed to operate. We don't go build roads out in the middle of nowhere just knowing that one day housing or development will come. We kind of tend to wait for some of that to happen to find out where the roads are needed, and then we go build the roads. And in some ways, I find that the case with the school system. We don't want them just throwing schools out there ahead of time because we don't really know where they're going to be needed. Now we know where they're needed, and they've known where they're needed, and, I understand that we're not going to get some schools for a few more years, but the reality is, even when those schools get here, we're still overcrowded.
I understand, and I think schools and amenities do follow the population rather than precede the population. The unique thing that I think is happening here right now, and it's not the first time it's happened in Cary. I remember this happening in a couple other places in Cary over time, but it is the magnitude of the overcrowding. To have a school that has 800 too many students and no plan for 6 years is a bad situation. I mean, this is beyond a bad situation. This is not like, oh, too bad we have modulars. This is a very serious problem. And I want everyone who is watching to understand that this should not have surprised anybody, particularly the school board, because we provide, every time we approve a rezoning, we pass that information to the county and the school board. They know what is projected to come. And so one thing that we have asked them to do is to go back and reevaluate their projections about how many students come with each unit, because there's assumptions that townhomes have fewer children. Well, that's not panning out. Our townhomes have many children living there. So this shouldn't have come as a surprise, but we're in a crisis situation. We need to act aggressively. We need our citizens to act aggressively. One of the things that we've done, I've gone and talked to the Home Builders Association and asked them to partner with us in acting aggressively and try to tackle this in unity, where it doesn't feel like it's us against them. You know, let's both go to the school and to the commission and say, this is a serious situation. And I will just say, everything that we're saying for Western Cary could be echoed down in Holly Springs and parts of Apex. We have, on the flanks of Wake County, we have some serious problems.
Other comments, questions?
Well, I was just going to say, I have to say, I don't want to say no to this. I want to say not right now.
I agree.
And I'm afraid I'll have to vote no. Because of where we are with all this, with our citizens at school with the traffic.
Other comments?
I just want to say, I feel like we're trying to put our finger in the dike, and it feels like that's not enough, but we have to do what we can. And the other thing I would say is, we're not, maybe if this fails, the message really is you can't sell your land for what you would get for it if it could be built at higher density, but we're not keeping people from selling their land. This land can be developed at its current zoning. That may not be what the market wants. That may not be what's selling, but we are not preventing people from selling their land. We're just saying you can't develop it at this density. We're not willing to raise the density there because of the impact on the schools. The roads are certainly just as important. So this is, I think, and I'm not going to be here for a lot more of these votes, but I feel like every one of these is going to get harder for this very reason. And it almost feels like this is the first domino. Don, your point is really excellent. So are we going to turn them all down? What are we going to do? I mean, if you say no to this, and I'm not speaking in favor of your motion, I'm sorry, but what I'm saying is I commiserate with you because, does that mean no more, rezonings in Western Cary until we catch up with schools? And when in the world would that be?
Well, that's what I'm hearing, is that no more rezonings in Western Cary until the schools are solved.
Which may be
what
never.
I'm hearing.
Never.
I mean, that's how I know. I just don't feel good either. I'm not going to leave feeling happy,
Right.
whichever way, or satisfied, or like I did a great job, maybe is the better way to put that, no matter which way I vote on this.
If we're going to deny 130 single-family homes at this density, I do not see how we can approve anything in Western Cary.
And that's one way to put it, and that is a correct way to put it. And the other way is to say, can we put 100 more children in overcrowded schools with no relief in sight? Because that's the code for 130 single-family homes. I mean, I don't have the answer.
Well,
I wish I did.
But you brought up a good point. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
No. I mean, I'm actually going to be building Jennifer's case. But the point is, every forecast shows that in the next 10 years, this is the #1 place in the country to come to. It's overtaken Silicon Valley, it's overtaken Boston, it's overtaken Austin. And I love that. I love when Texas loses. And the point is, it's coming, and it's coming almost as a tsunami. And that's why I'm having trouble getting my head around the 130. I agree with you. What you're basically saying is, the constant drip in the glass, it's right at the level. The next drip is the one that the water spills over, and I think we're caught in that. But there's something in, there's something in my mindset that says postponing, we're kind of kidding that it's going to help the problem. Maybe it will. I respect the opinion. But I think it's just time that, look, the Knightdale area is exploding. They're putting schools up there. I kept reading in the paper. I don't know how many people are up there, but they're getting a lot of schools. And the county is going to explode. This is just minor right now. And I just don't see this, delaying this, helping in any way, that finger in the dike. And we have a bigger problem that all of us have to rally around. And I don't mean us as a council. I mean, our communities have got to get involved with their elected officials. They've got to go after their state people.
Oh, yeah. That's the problem.
No, I didn't. I'm just making the point that it's coming to this area. The growth is coming. The settlers are coming, and everybody, every municipality in the county has got to start rethinking how it looks at things, because this incremental, a dime here, a dime there, let's get 2% on our budget, let's do this, ain't going to fix the problem. And we've all got to step up, on the bigger picture. I think I just sealed your argument. I was trying not to.
I see it, but I see this both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, for the owners of this land, I would love to just approve this and just say, it's just 130 more. That's what I want to do. But I know I just denied a bunch the last couple meetings, and when I add those to this, and I add the ones that are coming, I know they add up to a lot. So I'm sorry, Don, this is one I just have to.
Well, you look at school, there's no doubt there's schools issues in crowding in West Cary. But the reality is we have that all over Cary. Cary Elementary's capped. So are we going to have the same attitude when it's not Western Cary?
I think it's one thing to have the caps. It's another thing to have a middle school with overcapacity to that extent that it is, with no relief in sight. So, I'm not sure what the answer is for the school board and what they need to do and what the county commissioners need to do. But I know that there are certain crisis areas that the school board is already aware of. We had that dinner in August. Several of the school board members came up to us and they said, we just had a meeting. We didn't realize it was so bad. We see it so horrible out there. What can we do to expedite a middle school? And that was the dinner conversation that night. And it is a very serious problem. It's not just a capped school. It's a capped school with 800 too many students and many hundreds of more units under construction right now or to be under construction with no relief in sight. I just don't know what we're going to do with all these schools.
It's obvious to me, and probably everybody in the audience and at home at this point, this does not have the votes to pass. So I'm inclined to ask the applicant, do they want a table? Do they want a vote? But at the end of the day, if this was 60 units, would you vote for it?
I personally would not.
So to me, I'm hearing if it's 1 unit or 130 units, any more development in Western Cary is not happening.
Well, 60 units would be less than what is currently zoned, because I think
there
they
you
could build
go.
83
Yes.
on what
Yes,
is
I
currently
would.
zoned as. I was over here doing the math, and I think I'm right. Am I right, Ms.
that
Green? Am I
right?
close to right?
They could do 83 right now?
It's 43.66 acres at 2 units an acre. Wouldn't that be 83.32 or some such?
Yeah.
I mean, so yes, 60, because that's
Yes.
1.5 or something. So I'm saying if they built at the current zoning, I'd go.
Right, and when was the last time somebody built R40?
Oh, I know.
I mean, we all
Well,
know it's a holding zone.
Is it R40? I thought you just said it was
Yeah,
R40.
R40 is
It's a holding
R40
zone.
designation. It's
You
a
know?
holding zone.
I understand. I totally understand. This is one of
So
those that
my
you just
question
don't
is,
feel
even
good for.
if we decided to table so they could work on it,
What would it take? Yeah, you shouldn't give false hope
This
to
is
someone.
this is
Table it
not,
and bring
this
it back.
is not for them to work on it. This is for us to work on it. that was my comment at the beginning to them, is that if they feared that it might be voted down, if I were in their shoes, I would ask for a table to give the elected officials at the town and county level a chance to get their act together and take care of this serious matter, and then step back up, hopefully without too much, cost and injury to them, and go and ask for their approval. And I know you think it's pie in the sky. I'm still optimistic.
Mr. Sharon, you've heard the discussion. Anything?
Very good to hear your responses and concerns and comments. It makes me think, as an applicant representing these homeowners, what opportunities have we missed, or is there something that we can do more? And time may be the best thing that we can ask for tonight, that we can continue to let us think, let us evolve on what we possibly can do to help you. I know that sounds like we're in the crosshairs here, and I know this is not the last time you're going to see more rezonings in Cary. So it is my hope that maybe with time, you all can decide how you're going to handle these cases in the future, and maybe we pick up after you have that grip on how you want to move forward.
Okay. I make them,
Withdraw your motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to, or I withdraw my motion.
And you were the second.
I guess I have to, right?
Well, that would be the polite thing to do, yes.
That would be the polite thing. Yes, I would.
And then I make a motion to table.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
And that's an indefinite table, right? There's no date certain
put a
on the
date on it.
return, right?
Okay. We have a motion.
May I
I'm
speak to
sorry,
that?
please.
I would just like to say that one of the things that makes Cary the place where everybody wants to come and makes this so hard is because of applicants like this and because of their representatives like this who say, what did he do? He took the responsibility on himself and themselves and said, maybe we have missed an opportunity. Maybe there's something else we can do. After hearing all this hard stuff, I mean, you have to respect that. I'm voting for this motion to table. I want to give them time. I want to give us time. I share your optimism, Jennifer. Optimism is what gets me up in the morning. So I'm saying go for it.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Grannon.
Thank you.
The 6.4 is not needed. We move, no. 6.5 was tabled. 6.6 was tabled. And that takes us to item 6.7, council initiated request on behalf of Triangle Math and Science Academy. Typically, with the council initiated request, the council member will explain the request. And if council is interested in learning more, we refer it to staff for a report and a recommendation. Ms. Robinson, this is your item.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I was approached by a representative for the Triangle Math and Science Academy, which is a charter school. You may remember that we approved this over off of 64 and in the McGregor Office Park. They are changing their financing, and they're going to permanent financing, and they're paying off their existing loans with a bond issuance. They're using a vehicle to do this called the Public Finance Authority, and one of the stipulations is that they have to have a elected body in their in the jurisdiction in which they are located, vote to approve. I think that's what it's called. It's basically vote. Yeah, vote to approve their process.
Well, hold a public hearing first.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Sorry, hold a public hearing and then vote. And we've been asked, as one of the governments in which they're located, they could have also gone to the county, to hold this on their behalf. And so I said that we would do it, and Dawn, you seconded it. So I don't know if you want to add anything, but it's very rudimentary.
Yeah, to me, it seemed like more of a process type compliance thing so they could move ahead. But to me, this goes right back to the discussion we were just having about schools and capacity. And here is an opportunity for the town to help a school expand and ultimately provide more seats to students that might otherwise alleviate some of the overcrowding we are seeing in the public schools. So to me, it seemed like a good opportunity to help them out, and no real responsibility, liability, or anything to the town as far as I could tell. It's just basically like a, yeah, we approve what you're doing. So I would hope that we could help them in that regard.
Yeah, so what we're asking is for the council to agree to hold this public hearing on their behalf, and I would recommend we do it in December. They need to move on their process. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is, and if their representative is here, he could speak to it, but I don't know if he is. So I thought he was.
Well, may I ask a
there he is. I see
procedural?
him waving right there.
May I ask a procedural question?
Yeah.
And I'll ask it of Chris, if it's okay. So let's say we hold so what we would be agreeing to tonight is hold a public hearing, not ask the staff to do any other research towards, to support the requester's position. By the way, I believe him, that the town is not putting itself at any kind of financial risk. What happened? I mean, first of all, is that a true statement?
I believe that is a true statement, but he is here.
Yeah, I actually was asking Chris, but I appreciate your opinion, too.
I'm not sure I'm answering this correctly, but typically council will ask staff to investigate these
Before we
council-initiated
call for the public
items.
hearing, which means it probably couldn't happen in
Right, to
December because it
report
couldn't be
back.
noticed fast enough, right?
That's correct.
It'd have to be January. Just trying to get a timeline in my head. The other question is this: what happens if we hold the public hearing and I can't imagine this happening? But I'm always, it's like chess, you got to think several positions ahead. What if the public comes out and says, we don't want you to do this? We don't want you to back this up.
I'm optimistic they won't.
Oh, Don, you can't be optimistic. Oh, my word.
Optimism is what gets me up in the morning.
I'm going to get you for that.
But I think that's a good question.
No, I'm just saying, and I'm willing to hold a public hearing because I don't think that's going to happen, but we need to be prepared for getting a mix of responses, which we typically get with a public hearing. And I think Don is absolutely correct that, we can't talk out of one side of our mouth and say, oh, it's horrible about the schools, and not do whatever we can on the other side to try to have more school seats for kids. And I'm willing, even though I won't be here when you have the public hearing, I certainly tonight am supportive of that step.
You'll be here in spirit.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I have question about is the pros and cons, and my understanding is this is something we have never done. So I'm very cautious about making sure we don't get ourselves in trouble.
Right, you're being asked to hold a public hearing for another entity.
But then to adopt a resolution approving the bonds.
That's correct.
So there's two parts of that,
That's right.
correct?
And I would like the applicant to speak to the word approval, because, my little Funkin' dictionary, approval means approval. My understanding of this is terminology. Where'd you go?
Ms. Barron?
Yeah, come on down, but let me ask you a question. Chris, what is the nature of the investigation that the staff would need to do?
Staff could report back on, requests that the council's had in the past, if there have been any, and the disposition for these kind of public hearing requests. Could investigate, not that I doubt Mr. Barron, but what the approval of the resolution means to council, and if there is any liability or any consequences for the town. I don't think that anyone's in the position to give you an opinion on that right now.
So it's due diligence. It's
That's
just the
right.
typical due
Why
diligence we would do.
Why would that prevent us from being able to meet this deadline? It's my understanding that that deadline is pretty important to the school. Why would it be impossible for us to get this on the December 11th agenda for a public hearing?
Oh, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you would, if you were to call or approve the calling of a public hearing, who's to call it? Is that staff's responsibility, or is it the applicants? I mean, there are a lot of issues, and at least staff would be able to come back to you in December and explain the procedures, the consequences, and what you're creating for the town for the future. And then at that point, with that information, you'd be able to make an informed decision about whether to continue and to go on and actually call the public hearing and open this avenue up in the future or not. It's just to provide council with the information that you need.
I just wonder if that information could just be sent to us via email so we understand it. And if there was any hardship, then we could, at that point, delay it. But if it looked like it was just kind of a benign thing, we could move forward and allow them to stay on their tight schedule that they have.
In my opinion, council may want to hear from our bond attorney to see, to just look at what this involves and what approval of the resolution means. There are a lot of steps in there, and
If I could
just
jump
would
in.
be far more organized to bring it back to you in December and let you call it then.
Well,
let's finish here at the table before we have other guests speak, okay? I think you were talking about what if people come up. Well, what if we don't have that bond investigation? And what if you look at the history of Wisconsin and the debt that they have and the fragile nature of a lot of those financial institutions? May not be us, but in a sense, we're tacitly approving something that, I think we want to do some due diligence here. It is new and it's different, and I understand the rush to get it done in December, but I don't think it's as simple as just responding to a citizen request. I think there has to be some level of diligence. That's all. If we can accelerate that, fine. But I would want to see some investigation or some thought of staff, especially around the financing and the implications. Even though we're not involved personally, we're giving tacit approval to that charter school. Okay.
I was just going to say, I think our responsibility as fiduciaries requires us to do that. I mean, I really do. One of the reasons this town has had a AAA bond rating for so long and is, held in such high financial esteem by financial institutions is that we don't take chances, and we're very conservative in, the use of the taxpayers' money. And I really think that's a fiduciary responsibility to know what the next step would be if we were to call a public hearing, and what does, support is a word that would make me more comfortable than approval. I understand there's some legal requirements for the language used, but I think doing that work first before we take that first step is what we normally do. And I hate that it doesn't fit their timeline, but I would hate to later, 2 years from now when the town's facing any financial implications go, well, we were just trying to help.
Well, we're not going to face, I don't think, any implications.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, but
that's what we're saying. We don't know.
Right, but at the same time, you wouldn't want that for the institution.
Exactly. And what's our responsibility to them? Yeah.
And so I hear two questions from Mr. Barron. One, I want to ask personally, what does this timeline mean if you are delayed? And two, speak to the word support.
One of the first things I was going to say was that we don't want to push anything forward under a timeline where you all aren't comfortable with it. We have already satisfied ourselves that we would probably be coming for a January public hearing so that you all would have an opportunity to get a staff report and understand what's going on. That's fair to you all, it's fair to the citizens. And so I was hoping to try to circumvent some of that conversation by interjecting and saying we've come to the conclusion that we can tolerate January if we can get it done. Second, with regard to support, the TEFRA regulations require that the financing structure be approved, that the issuance of the bonds be approved by the local government. And so from my perspective, from a legal perspective, we don't have an option on the nuances associated with what that word means. It means what it says. It is an approval of the issuance of bonds. Again, as I've communicated to Councilor Robinson and other members of the council, the bond counsel that have been engaged on behalf of the issuer in this case have done this in a number of jurisdictions in several different places, and there is no liability to the town. The town's not pledging its bond rating in any way, shape, or form associated with the issuance of the bonds. Again, it's just given the nature of the issuance of the bonds and the fact that they're issued by a public authority out of Wisconsin, the federal regulations associated with that require that the local government adopt a resolution approving the issuance of the bonds. So that's a long way of probably not answering your question, but it says what it says, and that's what we're stuck with.
Right.
Mr. Barron, I think if you had some of the best practices or examples that you could give our staff, how it's been handled, that might accelerate the process.
Yeah, we've got a draft resolution that they've used in other places, so you guys can see ultimately what the council's being asked to resolve, and can certainly share best practices and experiences from other cases they've worked on.
In a worst case scenario, if we got one of those, I'd like to hear.
That's not getting approved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So it sounds like our next step, which would be okay with them, would be to call on staff to come back with information at our December meeting. So if we can get a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion that we have staff bring back information at our December 11th meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We don't have a closed session this evening. There are no other items on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor Booth's
We
projection of 40.
are adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.